What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Got another video. I'm kind of making them as things come to me and I want to talk about them so I don't forget. Today I want to talk about your rationalization hamster and why you need to kill it. If this is a new term for you, the rationalization hamster is a phrase coined by I don't know who, but it's basically that voice in your head that causes you to think too much, worry too much, justify things, and the word picture really is like you got a little hamster in the wheel, you know, they just run and they don't get anywhere. And that's like in your head, you know. So if you can picture a hamster wheel in your head and the hamster running but not getting anywhere, that's basically what it is. It's that thing that, for one, it won't shut off. It also causes you to do a lot of things that are really harmful to you. And the reason I call it a rationalization hamster is because one of the biggest things that it does is it helps you rationalize the things that you've done to match up with what you believe, or at least say that you believe, so that you don't have to change those beliefs, because changing beliefs is really hard work. So I'm gonna start off with a small story about myself. If you know me, you know that I'm a musician and I've played in a bunch of bands. I've played a lot. And one of the things, I don't do this as much anymore because my skill level has improved some to where I correct my mistakes faster, and I'm fast enough now a lot of times that I don't believe that most people notice when I make one, but I do make them. And that's really the difference, I think, between the really pro level type musicians and beginners, is how quickly you can adapt to when you've made a mistake, how quickly you can fix it and or make it fit. One of the things that I used to do, and I really don't do it much anymore, but one of the things I used to do in order to fix my mistake, I would hit, like, let's say we're going into a chorus, and I would hit what I'm gonna call a red note, because in music theory there's no such thing as a wrong note because it's an art. So it's a red note. And if it was a red note that was maybe pink or orange, not necessarily red, but you could tell it didn't fit, sometimes what I would do is, if I came back around into that chorus, I would hit that red note again on purpose the second time to make everybody think I did it on purpose. I do it now some, but it's typically with something that works a lot better. Like, if it doesn't work at all, I typically have had it fixed fast enough anyways, and it doesn't really matter. But anyhow, as a newer musician, that was one of the things I did. And so basically I'm going back over and I'm repeating my mistakes and reinforcing them. Not a great habit. Not that big of a deal in the life of a musician. I mean, I'm not gonna cause any cataclysmic events by playing the wrong note once in a while, even if it is on purpose. However, one of the things that we do in our lives is that we'll make a mistake and we get our rationalization hamster going, really it just goes by itself, and you got to make a conscious effort to stop it. But we get our rationalization hamster going, and you make up a reason of why whatever it was that you did was the right decision, or what it was the right thing to do. And you hear a lot of that when you hear people saying, oh, well, this is my truth, or this is my journey, or this is my whatever, because they don't want to compare themselves to other people who maybe have made better choices, or had better actions, or get better results. And we rationalize away the change that we should have in our lives. And it's part of the problem with it is that and this is something that has been a struggle for me, and it's really a struggle for a lot of people, is we're afraid of being wrong. And I have a lot of, I teach some, I don't anymore, but I used to. I've had students before that are, if you've run into a student that's like a perfectionist, and they're doing stuff, and they're like, they don't want to play, and I was like this. I didn't play in front of people for like a year after I started taking lessons, because I did not want to mess up, and I didn't want to look bad, and I wanted everything to be perfect. And so we're afraid of being wrong. And when really, like, being wrong is the start of being right. If you're always right, you're really just pretending. And nobody believes you except yourself. And that's your rationalization hamster there, justifying or telling you why you're right. And everybody else can go F off, and you don't owe them an explanation, or this is my truth, or this is blah blah blah. You've all seen people post stuff like that, whatever. That's your rationalization hamster at work, hard at work. And so what ends up happening is you start identifying with these beliefs now that you've created, so you didn't have to be wrong, and you've created an identity out of yourself, or for yourself, out of something that's completely wrong, or these completely wrong decisions. And then you keep, like I do when I'm playing a wrong note in a chorus over and over again, you keep making that mistake over and over again, because it's part of your identity. You're like, I don't want people to see that I was wrong. I want them to think that I was right, so I'm going to keep doing it. Just like I kept playing the wrong note over and over again, instead of just I'm pretending it's perfect, instead of just admitting, okay, it was wrong, and I play the right note in the next chorus. Another area I think that this can lead into, and this is a little bit less on the rationalization hamster and a little bit more on the identity. One of the other things we do is we create identity out of things that are temporary, like our jobs, or for instance, for me, like the bands that I'm in. And it's really hard to not do that. I do it still, even though I realize consciously that it's not always the best thing to do. There are parts of it that are good, that helps you stay committed to things and stuff, but really you don't want to make an identity out of that stuff, because if it's temporary and it goes away, and really, I mean, there isn't any kind of a situation that's permanent. Anything can happen. People can die. There can be accidents. There can be people just going different directions. There can be a change in the company structure. There could be a buyout. I'm talking about like jobs and careers and stuff. And it's really difficult. And there's a term called being zeroed out, and it typically more applies to men than women. But being zeroed out is like your wife divorced, you lose your job, your wife divorces you and takes the kids, and you've got nothing. And that happened to my dad all at once, honestly. So your entire identity is gone all at once if you've wrapped your identity up in your job, career, and your wife and kids or whatever. And not to say that you need to, like, well, screw my wife and kids, I'm gonna be my own man and they can suck it. But you need to make your identity more about you. Your identity needs to be more about the principles that you carry. For instance, instead of making your identity about your career, make your identity about being hardworking, the principles that you carry into work, because you can take those principles, let's say your job goes away tomorrow, you can take those principles and find new opportunities and use those principles in order to create a new life for yourself. I was going to say a new identity, but really your identity would stay the same. And you don't have that problem with having to try to kill your ego, because the ego investment is in the principles and not in your identity as a whatever it is you are. For me, a long time ago, it was an operations consultant. As far as doing things the quote-unquote wrong way, and not being able to admit when you're wrong or change things when you're wrong, it's really difficult to do that. It's something you've got to be conscious of, and the problem with it is that unconsciousness is kind of the key to why you do it to begin with. It's what causes it. And so getting yourself out of that loop of constantly making that same mistake and pretending like it's right, because the more you do it, the more invested you get into why this is the right thing, and the more you fight against perfectly good, obvious evidence as to why it was the wrong thing, and you don't change, and you keep making your life worse. One of the things that you can do is to start making truth and changing your belief sets part of your identity. Because then when you change a belief that you've held for a long time, and I went through this actually a few years ago, and it was really a crisis for me. When I say crisis, I mean like kind of a turning point where I changed a lot of things about myself and about what I believed, and it was tough. It got real dark for quite a while, a couple of years, really. It was pretty bad. And one of the things that I started doing, and there's a few books that I read, Your Erroneous Zones by Dr. Wayne Dyer was one of them, and I don't agree with everything I read. I don't agree with everything I see, or everyone that I listen to, or everyone that I even say I like. I pick and choose what out of people's messages that I like, and I take it for what it is, and I don't ever want one person to be the whole for me, if that makes sense. Like, I follow this one guy and he's everything, and I don't listen to anybody else, or everything he says is right. There's no person like that for me. That was just a little aside. Anyhow, yeah, I read some books like that, and they'd say things in there that I really didn't agree with. Like it hurt to read some of that stuff and apply and try to apply it, because I was trying to fit it inside my belief set that was frankly wrong, because it was trying to get me to ego invest. The belief set was trying to get me to ego invest in, or further ego invest in that belief, that, and then I wouldn't have to admit I was wrong. I wouldn't have to admit that I had to change, because change is hard and we don't want to do it. So yeah, I started reading some stuff, and I got depressed. I had to work through a lot of the depression, but a lot of the depression was because of the fact that I was really having to kill my ego, and it sucked bad. And I think a lot of times, my dad included, if I listened to what he to what he says. This is reading between the lines from the stories that he tells me, because we've had a lot of long talks about what he went through when he got zeroed out. A lot of his depression, I think, too, was him dealing with killing off some of those ego investments. And he talks to me a lot about, like, Joseph, if you've read the Bible, and how he forgave his brothers. And, you know, his question is always, when did Joseph forgive his brothers? Well, the Bible doesn't really say that. You just have to, you know, it's really just a thought experiment. When did he? I have no idea. When he first saw them after being in captivity for, what was it, 30 years or something, he ran up and gave them hugs, so it was obviously before that. Probably while he was in prison, probably while he was in the darkest times of his life. And a lot of times that depression and that stuff it's good for you, because it's forcing you to work through stuff. And if you don't work through it, probably you'll end up staying depressed. It's this guy Elliot Hulse has a really good description. He's like, you take a rubber ball and you throw it down on the ground and it smashes down. It's depressed, but because it's rubber, it has to depress in order to expand and bounce back up. It's not going to bounce if it doesn't depress first. And so sometimes that depression is you depressing in order to bounce back up, but you got to do the work in order to be able to bounce back. Anyhow, that is pretty much all I have to say on that topic. A lot of my videos, I'm really just wanting to, I don't want to come up with a lot of conclusions for people. I want some of this to be open discussion, and I want people to be able to, I guess, get some of their own ideas. I don't like telling people what to think. I mean, I do, but hopefully I'm not doing that. Yeah, what I'm really looking for out of this stuff is to start discussions, even if it's just a discussion in your own head while you're taking a shower or whatever, or winning fake arguments with some anonymous person. Anyhow, that's all. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time.